I am excited about tonight's topic. I want you guys to do me a favor and hit that like and share button. We will have a pretty good chat tonight. I think it's something that's very revelatory to the climate for a lot of people right now. So whether we watch it live or watch it on the replay, I really think this is something that we should really get out our journals so that we can take some really good notes. I want to not just talk to the topic, but I want to give us some tools to overcome. I think that's probably one of my best ways in delivering anything is to not only just talk about the topic, but then let's talk about how we address the topic. Hi, Mom. So let's see here. I don't know if this is working, but we're just going to go ahead and get started. So if you saw the title is I'm just not feeling it, or how to overcome the creative block that maybe some of us are feeling or something like that. So again, tonight's topic is I'm just not feeling it. The subtitle will be combating creative burnout. And so I really want us to think about where we are. I want us to think about kind of where we've been in our ability to create, our ability to find space to do that, and be pleased with the outcome. And I will speak for myself and say that it's been a struggle for me personally, just dealing with the pandemic, dealing with all of the new norms, dealing with how we're going to get through this. Hey, Jonathan, good to see you. Just trying to figure that out. And it's been a bit of a challenge. I literally sat in my closet the other day and I was talking to a friend of mine and I was like, I think I'm just tired. I was like, I'm trying to get past this. I'm trying to understand kind of what's contributing to this frustration that I'm feeling, because it doesn't matter what form of a creative that you are, when you cannot produce the thing that brings you joy, it really can take a toll on you, so to speak. So tonight, I really want to talk to you about this topic. If you know of any creatives who are possibly having this same or similar struggle, I would invite you to have them come on tonight and let's just kind of talk through it. So just to get started, it's important to know that as a creative, we all are fueled, are energized to be creative differently. So the things that heighten our ability to produce, it comes from a multitude of streams, right? But the thing that we have to understand is that creative work is personal, okay? And it's fueled by a unique set of things that make you, right? Hello, sister Maurice, how are you? Hey, cousin. And so the thing that we need to think about is, listen, I am creating something, and what I'm creating is a personal representation of how I view or how I show up in the world. And so when we understand that, you have to listen and understand and respond to what you're feeling when it comes to how you produce and then how you respond to your production. And so you may not be the person who runs up and down the hall shouting about all of the things that you've achieved. You may not turn cartwheels every time you sign a deal. That just may not be how you express. And that's okay. That's actually a great thing, because how you respond to that which you've been called to create is personal. And so don't beat yourself up when your response doesn't match someone else. The one thing that I would ask that you do is honor your feelings, because you're the only one feeling them. I want to say that again. I need you to honor your feelings, because you are the only person feeling that thing. Okay, so our emotions are personal. Creative work is personal. So honor what you feel. Let's not minimize it because it doesn't resemble what somebody else is presenting or someone else's feelings. Honor it because it's you. It's uniquely how you show up in the world. Okay. But the thing that I also want to say is, when we're feeling creative burnout, we have to develop an action plan to deal with it. If you sit in that burnout and you do nothing with it, it's just going to fester. And then you will find it spilling over into everything. You will find it to be such a chore to get up in the morning. It's a chore for you to write or read or whatever it is that's your creative outlet, it becomes a chore. The joy has been sucked out of it. So when you find yourself looking burnout in the face, let's at that point honor what we feel because we're the only one feeling them. Now let's create an action plan. Let's get out of this rut, because the longer you sit in the thing and the more you normalize it, the more likely it will become a permanent reality. I'm going to say that one more time. The longer you sit in something and you create a reality around that thing, the more likely that's going to become your new normal. So when we recognize this trend and this norm as wrong or abnormal or not unique to who we are, let's address it. Let's immediately create an action plan. What's the best way to do that? Anybody know? I'm going to tell you my best way. Let's pull out a journal. Let's get on the phone. Let's pull out, those little knickknacks. Let's create an ambiance for us to get past this mental block. You have to hear it aloud. You cannot address what you first do not want to accept and what you have to accept it. So if it's wrong, I'm going to address it. I see this as wrong. Now I need to connect with somebody who knows the real me, the person who sees me at my core and says, hey, I noticed, even when you're doing the thing that you love to do, the joy factor is not there anymore. I don't see you radiating through it. I don't see you showing up in the fullness of who you are. What's happening? Has something happened? Now, before I attribute all of it to burnout, there are some things that are also external factors that can limit or hinder our production. Toxic environment and toxic people being the top two. If you are in a place of toxicity and you're trying to produce, the likelihood of that production happening is pretty slim to none, because it's not going to come in an environment it's not intended for. Okay. So that's why we don't deliver babies in the hallway. We deliver them in a sterile environment, because what's coming into it has to be in the environment that it was intended to be birthed or created in. Now, when we've had that baby, we've cleaned it up. Now that baby can interact with the general public, but not initially. So when you are creative and what you are creating is in its infancy stages, you want to be careful to not create that in an environment that's not conducive to that which you are creating. So if you know that there has been a place in time where I have been surrounded by toxicity, it might be time to change and consider the environment. Okay? Back to the burnout, because that's what we're talking about. Okay, so think about it. When you are in that place, you got to deal with it. Now, you have to include a strategy to find your way back to your passion. And why? Because giving up on what brings you joy is never an option. You have to find a strategy to bring you back to what you are most passionate about, because giving up on your joy is never an option. Never. Because what you will then do is redistribute your energy and your productivity to bring joy or to bring to fruition someone else's vision, which then is going to make you become resentful. So if you are not creating what brings you joy, we've got to go back to the drawing board. How do you get back to your passion? How do you get back to the thing that fuels you? How do you get back to the thing that you were purposed to do? And a lot of that happens with being around people who really see you and identify with your purpose, and who will help push you into that even on your worst days. Even when you feel you have absolutely nothing else to give, there will be people around who will help cultivate that for you. Okay. So one of the things that I know to be true, even as a creative, is when you know that you are naturally able to create something and you experience burnout, the first thing you start to wonder is what's wrong with me? Is something wrong with me? Did I do something? Have I reached my cap? Is there nothing else for me to give? We start to make it personal. We start to almost have a personal attack, or accept it as a personal attack against ourselves, because now what we have always done and what we've created, we're not bringing that to the world, right? And so one of the things that I would say to you is, before you start saying what's wrong with me or how did this happen to me, let's get to the root cause of the issues. What is causing the negative emotion and the negative meditation to fester? What are some of those contributing factors? Because it may not be you, but it may be what you've allowed yourself to become attached to. It may be the environment that you're in. So let's get to the root of the issue. And understand that as a creative, you are not immune to burnout. You are not the exception. You it's going to happen to you just like it possibly will happen to somebody else. So as a creative, please do not for any reason believe that you are exempt from burning out. You're not. And it can happen to you. But the best way to overcome it is to have a strategy in place. It's not just a conversation. It's not just willing and wishing ourselves into another reality. It is having a strategy. It is having an action plan in place and then executing that thing and remaining accountable to that which you said you were going to do. Okay. So and listen, you're not exempt. When you find yourself there, getting to the root cause of what the contributors are is probably the most important step, but it is also the longest step because it can come from various avenues. So we may look at this and then we start to pick that apart and we're like, okay, and then I see this. And so I would say in the process of identifying the contributors of your burnout, give yourself time and give yourself grace. Okay, give yourself time and give yourself grace and really work through that. One thing that you hear me say often is sit in the truth of what you feel for as long as you need to. Because you have to feel it. You have to be able to identify. You cannot address, again, what you cannot identify. So sit in the truth of what that feels like. Sit in the truth of what you're going through so that we can actually deal with it. Because what typically happens is we start having symptoms. Our symptoms are typically our responses to people, our attitude, our disposition. That's the symptom, but it's not the root cause. So let's get to the root of it so that we can stop dealing with the symptoms, because most people will treat the symptom of a thing in hopes of it going away. But when that underlying condition still resides, it's going to show back up, and it's going to show back up in an inappropriate way against people typically that you love, against people that you are closest to. So let's deal with our issues for real, and let's stop treating the symptoms. I will tell you this. I tend to look beyond what people give me because I've been there. And so if you give me an attitude or you give me this cold shoulder type deal, most times I will be like, oh, there's another thing going on there. I don't really think it's me. And then sometimes I take it personally because I'm human. And I was like, I'm sorry, what did I do to you? Did I wake up with you this evening or yesterday morning? Or what's happening with you? Like, I didn't do anything to you, right? But the majority of the time, I'm looking past what you're giving me because I get it. I know what it is to have a symptomatic behavioral response to something because I can't really deal with the core of what's going on with me. So let's get to the core of it. Sit in the truth for as long as you need to. Be surrounded by some people who will let you sit in the truth, but will also keep you accountable to a forward progression. That's the key. You sit in the truth of it, but you got to be surrounded by people that are not going to let you wallow or die in that. They will keep you accountable. Okay, you feel this? Yep. And we're still moving and we're still going and we're going to work through it and we're going to keep you accountable because I'm going to work I see you become the best version of you. I have that mantra for a reason. It's not a cliche. It's not something that I just decided to throw on a logo. My life work is to help people become the best version of themselves. That is why I'm here. I'm fully persuaded and I know that. And I do that one person at a time, one conversation at a time. And I'm going to remind you of who you are, even in feeling defeated or depleted or feeling like you are at your lowest. I'm going to remind you of who you are because this world is incomplete without your contribution. Period. Nobody can give the world your contribution. It is uniquely designed for you. So we need what you have, but we cannot get what you have when you are in a place of blurred vision, when you are in a place of fatigue, when you're in a place of frustration. Okay? So we've got to deal with that. Okay? Listen, find a confidant. Get the work done. Get to the root of your issues sooner than later helps you redistribute your mental ability to something more productive. When your mental energy is being pulled into negativity and toxicity and depression and the things that aren't going to help move you forward, you don't have the creative energy that you need to actually produce. So when we get to the root issue, we call a spade, we deal with it head on, we free up our mental capacity to produce, to become productive, to get back to the thing that makes us who we are. But the longer we wallow in it, the least likely we are to be able to turn that around. So let's get to the root. Let's be productive with our energies. One of the things that you have to do is break down maladaptive mental maps. When you have created these default thought patterns in your brain without knowing it, you will result to that. You will resolve to that. And you'll be like, wait, I really didn't feel like that initially, but you have trained your brain to respond that way, which is another reason why creatives have to have an outlet. We have to have something that we're allowed to pour ourselves into, to create fruit, to create something beautiful, to create something that's purposeful. Otherwise, we can create destruction. Let us be very clear. A creative mind can create destruction when it is not allowed to create what it is intended to create. I mean, think about some of the masterminds. I mean, they play these scenarios out in their brain long before it ever comes to earth. So you have to be careful about what you give your mental energy to, because it can happen. I'm telling you, we can create a whole scenario in our mind and then we act out on it. So you got to be careful about that, okay? Step 2 is say goodbye to shame. You have to say goodbye to shame, because what happens is we start feeling inadequate. We feel a level of deficiency, or we've allowed our self-esteem to take a really hard blow because of our inability to create or find an outlet where our energy can be welcomed and cultivated. And so now we feel less than, and you've got to let that go, because again, we even as creatives are not exempt from burnout. We're not, because you're pouring. The thing is, when you're pouring and you're not being refilled, you eventually run out of things to pour. That's just a natural thing. So don't beat yourself up and start to feel that you're less than because you're not able to show up the way that you're used to showing up, you guys. You're not less than. You're human. And now we've got to address the thing, okay? So don't result to shame. And one of the reasons why it happens is because we as creatives tend to attach our identity to our ability to create. So that which we create is what we identify with. And so when we have nothing to create, we now feel a sense of lack of identity, where we're lost. We don't know how to show up because I can't give the world what I attach my identity to. This is another reason why you have to be rooted in the truth of who God has called you to do or called you to be, because even in the moments where you can't push it out, it doesn't make you less than who he's called you to be. Identity is key. So don't attach your soul identity to what you can give out to the world. Because there will be times when you just can't give anything and you're no less than who you are called to be. Okay. So let's not do that. The one I found a couple quotes that I wanted to share with you, and Natalia Sajine puts it this way. She says, when you feel burnt out, you haven't dried up your well of creativity. You've overworked your creative muscle. You've forgotten to stretch it. You've repeated the same movement too many times, or you are you're overdeveloping certain sections while weakening others. Okay. So it's just, you've overworked a muscle. And if anybody works out, you pulled a muscle, you strained a muscle, you have to give that muscle an opportunity to repair and heal itself, so that it can be used in the manner in which it was created. So even in your creative muscles, there has to be times of reprieve, times of replenish, times of refreshing, so that creativity can then show up again and show up stronger and all of the things. But you got to give yourself an opportunity to rest. And rest is not a bad thing. And I'm going to make a side note here because I was having a conversation with someone and I said, I feel really bad for people who are seeing all these posts where people are saying, well, if you haven't done anything in this quarantine, or if the quarantine didn't bring out the hustler and you were never a hustler, are undervaluing what people's contributions are because it's not showing up in the form of a new business or a new venture or a new whatever. If you took 4 months of this quarantine to rest for the first time since you can recall, kudos to you, creative one. If you didn't write a new song in this season and you've been poured into and your well has been replenished, kudos to you, creative. You are no less than anyone else. What I commend you on is your ability to listen to your body, to listen to your heart, and get what you hadn't been able to get in a very long time. And now that you are redesigned, now that you have been replenished, now you can show up. Now you can be all that you've been cultivated to be, because sadly for you, you didn't get any days off. You've been pushing, you've been pumping it out, you've been giving the content, you've been writing the songs, you've been creating, you've been writing the proposals, whatever. You had no days off. So if you took 4 months of days off, good for you. Clap it up for the one who finally decided to rest. I commend you. Because when you show up, it's going to be like when they pull that arrow back and they sling it and it goes even further than anticipated because it allowed itself to be stretched. And now it's going to shoot forward. Good for you for not jumping out there prematurely. Good for you. Kudos to you. Tell them I said it. Okay. Another quote, it says, burnout means that you've pushed your creative energy beyond the point of recovery. Like the well of water, creative energy replenishes itself slowly over time. To my point, if you have gone into a season of being replenished, it happens slowly over time. And my prayer for you this time is when you are replenished, that you learn how to pour out at a level that keeps you where you need to be so that you never run empty. Because you need to be poured into as you pour. And if you go back into the same pattern of pouring until the point of empty and then having to take a 4-month leave of absence to be replenished, then that is where we have a problem. You've got to pour at the level in which you're being poured into so that all of you shows up. Not fragments of you, not a frustrated version of you, not the symptoms of you, all of you. Okay? Plan of action. This is where you need your journals. This is where we need to figure it out. So listen, what was step 1? Get to the root. Step 2, say goodbye to shame. Step 3, we're creating a plan of action. This is where accountability comes into play. This is where I say no excuses, only results. This is your work. You have to do your work. If you're ever going to see anything flourish as a result of what you want to see done, you got to do the work. So here's the work. Step 1, plan and escape. Plan and escape. Now, in this season, which is a little unorthodox, you have to be very creative with what that looks like, right? So customarily, we would probably go somewhere else or have a change of scenery and all the things. We can get creative with that because we're creatives. So create an escape. I did it. You guys, I feel like I have a whole new place here around the house. We as a family have come together. We've created spaces that resemble our personalities. They welcome us. We feel like we are moving at a different speed. Most of you may have seen it. I created an outdoor space. I love to be outside. So I needed a plan. I needed an escape. I spend my mornings on my patio. I write, I journal. I don't even turn my hearing aids on. I just allow myself to be absorbed in a space that gives me an ability to just breathe and let life come to me and let God speak to me and love on me before I do anything. Create an escape. You've got to figure that out. Okay? Laugh. And I'm not talking about no kiki. I'm talking about laugh till you cry. Roll on the floor. Crack up. Whatever brings joy into your world, create more of that. It's okay to turn off what depletes you. It's okay to not answer that phone call. It's okay, because if you need a moment where you are allowing your world to be surrounded with joy, it's okay to not invite something that's going to disrupt that. You have the right to do that. One of the things that me and my son pray every night before he goes to bed is that our home will be filled with love, peace, and laughter. And per AJ, he's the one that brings the laughter, and he does. He's hilarious. But that's one of our prayers. And so if ever you're in my space, we're goofballs. We are going to crack up. We are going to have fun. That is what we're going to do. So you have to laugh. You got to have something that brings you joy. And that should be every day. That should be something that you look forward to on Friday. Joy should be a daily portion for you. Scream, shout, let it out. Some people be like, what? So you just want me to scream? Yep. I want you to go in your closet or put your face in your pillow or go sit in your car and just scream. Let it out. You've got to release that built up aggression. Let it out. And once it's out, leave it there. Don't welcome it back in. Let it out. Just get it out. Have somebody come scream with you. Y'all can just start screaming. And I bet you ultimately after you done screamed and y'all done did all that, you probably gonna start laughing. Because now you have space for joy. Because you released the frustration. Let it out. Let it out. Make time for fun. So adulting really requires an unnecessary level of seriousness sometimes. Like, if we're just honest about it. It's like we're always on. We always have to be serious. We don't really get to just have fun. We like, dang, I missed when I was a kid. I didn't have to worry about all this stuff. But as an adult, you can even make time for fun. So whatever that looks like, even in a quarantine, if it is creating virtual game nights, if it's creating spaces where you're connecting with people in different ways, whatever that is for you, make time for fun and make fun a priority. Like, you're a creative, and most of the time when you do your best work, it's when your endorphins are going, it's when you're at a place of peace and you're excited, and typically it's when something fun or exciting is happening. So the lack of fun in the creative's world is what ultimately brings depression and burnout, because like the fun has been sucked out of it. Like, I don't enjoy this anymore. I don't want to do it. So you gotta have fun. You gotta have laughter. You gotta have joy. These are the things that help us as creatives thrive. Period. It's fact. Okay. So we're creative, so we can figure it out, even in a virtual space. Make time. Call people on FaceTime instead of just calling them on the phone now, because we like connection as creatives. So look people in the face, look people in the eyes, answer. You know what I mean? The people that you know are going to help you stay in a mode that is conducive to who you are as a creative. Invite more of that in. And the final step for the plan of action is to move and rest. Our bodies are our temples, and how we treat our bodies matters. And our brain is a part of our body. So at some point, there has to be time when we can, one, get adequate sleep. Creatives have a tendency to go until they can't go anymore. And then it takes you longer to kind of get back in gear. Let's get adequate sleep, people. Let's go to bed at a decent hour. For real. And let's get moving. Let's exercise. Let's do something. And it can be fun. Like, it could be dance. It could be biking. But move. I need us moving. I need those endorphins flowing. I need us to just, I need us to move. I need us to find some way to just release some of that energy and that anxiety and whatever we've had pent up. Get to moving at least 3 to 4 times a week for a minimum of 30 minutes. That's not even a good TV show these days. So you can do it. You can carve out the stuff that's not fueling you so that you have time to replenish, so that you have time to rebuild. So what are the steps again for the course of action? Plan and escape, laugh, scream, shout, let it out, make time for fun, move and rest. It is imperative that you do this for your mental well-being and for you to have a sense of completeness and wholeness so that you can show up in this world